Hello, my name is Jeremiah Easley. I'm the director of the Preclinical Surgical Research Laboratory here at CSU, and I am accompanied by Dr. Simon Turner, my dear friend, and the founder of the Preclinical Surgical Research Laboratory here at CSU over 30 years ago now, correct? So we're just going to be having some discussions on lots of different topics today, covering career and life and marriage and research and everything else. So ready to get into it? Okay, so I wanted to just kind of talk to you a little bit about your career and how you got started with the Preclinical Surgical Research Laboratory. So how did you go from being an equine surgeon and then now being a sheep surgeon?
Okay, the story goes like this. I had a bicycle accident, and then I started to lose concentration in surgery, and then I was told, look, you might want to think of doing something else. And then I was ready to go on a sabbatical, and I planned my sabbatical purposely to go to the ASIF Center, which, as you know, is where all the human orthopedic research was started in Davos, Switzerland, in the southeast corner of Switzerland. Well, I went there, I got that all arranged, and I fast forward, I was there for 6 months, and while I was there, Jeremiah, I could see they were using a lot of sheep for their human orthopedic research. And then, because the Europeans are crazy about dogs, you don't use dogs for research in Europe. They're nuts on their dogs. And you'll go to a restaurant and there'll be dogs on the feet under the tables in a restaurant, in a fancy restaurant. So you don't use, and then I saw, sheep. And then I knew we had a lot of sheep in Colorado. And then when I got back, I spoke to Cleon Kimberly, who, by the way, has just turned 90, as you know. And he said, I know how to get hold of a lot of sheep. And here's the thing, I can get hold of old sheep. Well, that's when I cued onto the osteoporosis, because osteoporosis is a disease of elderly people, mainly in women. And I thought, maybe if I can use these sheep for a model for osteoporosis. And that's how that all started. And then we started over-rectomizing the sheep and so on. But I wasn't totally hooked on osteoporosis. It was orthopedic research in general. And probably one of the most exciting bits of research I did was figure out, a company called me and said, oh, look, I know you do sheep. We've got an implant, and we're trying to work out a better way to get the bone to bond to the implant, because it's going to be used for humans for orthopedic research, for prostheses. Well, fast forward. We did 9 sheep, and then a lady in California, in the Bay Area, and then an orthopedic surgeon in a Bay Area contacted me and said, we've got our first human implantation. Do you want to come and watch it?
I bet that was exciting.
It was fabulous. Yeah. And I flew out there, put my scrubs on and went in, and this lady had an osteogenic sarcoma, osteosarcoma of her distal femur, and they were cutting the femur in the mid-femur and then taking the rest of the leg and throwing it away because it had the cancer and attaching a prosthesis. And I was in the OR. It was kind of cool, and the orthopedics surgeon, a guy called Jim Johnson, said, oh, this is Simon. He does sheep research, and this prosthesis was first investigated in sheep, and everyone just dropped. She went on, 9 months later, she had kids, and she went on to walk. And now that particular Biomet did that, sponsored that. That now is in over 300 people for 9 sheep. That was one of the early ones, and then that led to, with my contacts through that guy, he said, I know someone that might be interested in doing spine research. And then it just snowballed.
Yeah, that's when it really got on the map.
Major. And that, of course, Howard Simon and I have done thousands of sheep for spine surgery. Thousands.
Well, you mentioned Howie, because that was one of the things I wanted to chat with you about. So how did you and Howie get together on these sheep spines?
I needed a dog plumber. Someone who plumbs dogs. I needed another, because we don't do, I wasn't doing a lot of wobbler surgery or anything. I needed a dog spine specialist. And then Howard and I got together and just started together, but our careers go back before CSU.
Way back, right?
We shared an office at Saskatoon in Saskatchewan at the university there. So it was...
Now, were you an intern at the time?
I was an assistant professor up there in equine. Not equine.
Right.
And he was small animal. He was small animal.
And was Withrow there?
Withrow was there too.
Yeah. So all three of you all were there at the same time.
Yep.
And then were you here, or was Howie here?
I was here first.
And then Howie came.
Well, very close. It may have been very close at the same time.
So then Howie just was able to look at a sheep spine and decide, hey, this looks close enough to a dog that we can...
Precisely. And because the size is pretty much similar. It's not like a sheep and a damn horse. And he could... A lot of the techniques and the screw sizes and everything just fit perfectly with the sheep. And then the sheep stuff really grew because we'd have a presentation at the ORS, that is the Orthopedic Research Society, as you know, and someone would say, look, I've got a similar prosthesis. Can we come to your lab? Ching, ching, and away it went. Because it snowballed. And this is all not related to sheep with sore spines. This is for human surgery. And then it just snowballed.
So why, obviously when you went to Davos, you saw that they were doing a lot of sheep preclinical research.
Correct.
Why were they using sheep, and then why is...
okay. Well, that's what I just mentioned. They don't like, they're nuts on dogs in Europe.
So what are the things though that what makes sheep good as a translational animal?
Firstly, the size. I mean, if you've got a screw this big, how the heck can you use that in a mouse? It's basically the size. We have access to them here. They're easy to house, and there's not a lot of emotion in North America about using sheep for research. And there is a bit in Europe, but there's nothing, it's not like here, because there's millions of sheep in Australia. Wool and gold put Australia on the map. Wool and gold. That's how Australia got on the map.
Well, you brought it up. So Australia, you come from a family of with a couple of vets, right?
I have a brother that's a veterinarian. He's an ophthalmology specialist. His daughter is a small animal vet in Melbourne. And my dear wife of 44 years, by the way, is an anesthesia. So there's a lot of vets in our family, but my father was not a vet.
He was a dairy farmer, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. I remember our trip to Australia together very vividly, and the family farm that you showed me was pretty amazing.
He got up every day at 4:35 and milked cows for years, and went for years without a holiday. And then I could help him, and then his brother could go for vacation, because his brother and my father, they were together on the dairy farm. Well, when my uncle wanted a vacation, I'd fill in for him. And then my father could take a vacation. He went for years without a vacation. Because you just can't walk away from cows and say, I don't think I'll milk you today.
No option for that, huh? So did you always want to be a vet?
I remember my father had a cow that was in dystocia, having a difficult time calving. And the vet, and I even remember his name was Kleinak or something like that, came out and delivered that calf. And I saw him. It was a vaginal delivery. I saw him deliver that calf. And I was about 10 years old. I said, Dad, that's what I'm going to do.
Was your brother the same way?
No, I think it wasn't until I showed interest that he started to show interest. Yeah. Then he went into...
So he's your younger or older?
Younger. He's a couple of years younger. Yeah. And he went into a private farm animal practice after graduation, and then he became a specialist.
So how did you get to the States?
Well, it's like the Peace Corps. They put you where they need you the most. No, that's a good question. Now, jokes aside, I started to, I was reading the literature and I said, this paper's from Davis, this paper's from Cornell, Pennsylvania, UPenn or whatever. I said, I think I better go there to get and I knew I had to do a little more, the residency, to get more certified. And I said, there's nothing like this in Australia. I got a truck over there. Well, I wrote to about 4 schools, and I wasn't getting much. And then I wasn't getting much. And then I just happened to get a letter from The Ohio State, where, of course, that's where my wife graduated. And they said, come over for a residency. And so I flew there, and I was 23 years old and landed in hot, humid Columbus from an Australian winter. Don't forget, we were as cold when I left. And got to Ohio. It was hot and humid. And I was picked up at the airport by Dr. Al Garbel, who's a standardbred specialist. And that's where I did my surgery residency, and then went to Canada and then how did I end up in Colorado? Well, I was giving a lecture. Actually, it happened to be in Switzerland at an ASIF course in Switzerland. Not when I was in Switzerland, but I flew back to for an ASIF course associated with the AO group. And O.R. Adams was there, of the great lameness in horses fame. Well, I flew back to Canada, had no idea I was coming here, and then there was a call from Jim Voss and said, we have a position here, would you be interested in it? I applied for it, and I've been here ever since. And my wife came up to Canada, Saskatoon, kind of a cold place, and then she got pretty excited about me moving to Colorado. She said, yeah, let's take that job. Yeah. And she got a job in actually clinical pathology.
So she's a board-certified clinical pathologist as well, isn't she?
And in anesthesia. She's a double dip. And then we got moved, and we love it here.
You were an equine surgeon first.
Yes.
So my question to you is, this is your second career, right? As a sheep surgeon?
No, as an orthopedic researcher, not a sheep surgeon. I wouldn't call myself a sheep surgeon. I'd say an orthopedic researcher.
What do you love about being an orthopedic researcher that you didn't get to be as an equine surgeon?
I think mainly we can find animal models for human issues. It's a little bit hard in horses to say, try that in a horse. Let's go to a company and put it in people. You're more likely to, because the implants are so different in size, you're more likely to try it from sheep into people. And that was exciting me, to be on the cutting edge for human research. And like I said, I've scrubbed in on with dozens of doctors.
Have you found the orthopedic research side of your career being the more rewarding side?
I said no, anything related to human. See, we've done a fair bit, we've done the drugs for osteoporosis and some medical stuff. That all interests me, all related to humans. To see me go from the sheep into people. Yeah. And there's about 12 items that got to the market that came through this lab. Yeah. And I won't go into the details of those, but they went from the sheep to people in this lab. And the Food and Drug Administration said, look, we need to try that out first in a large animal. We can't use mice or rats or hamsters for that, because the implant is the size of the damn mouse's leg. We need to try that in something big. And that's how the rest is history.
You received the AVMA Career Excellence Award, is that correct?
Yep. I was the first and only Australian ever to get that.
Really?
Yep.
Congratulations. You got the ACVS Founders Award.
Yep.
And then the other one I'm thinking of is your honorary degree from Melbourne.
Well, an honorary degree, it's pretty cool. You don't have to do a damn thing for it. Yeah. And they present you with this beautiful red gown, free, and one of those big floppy hats. And I can wear that to graduation, which I have here at CSU. And I got up at the graduation. They were graduating vet students, and they said, "Oh, while the vet students are here, there's another award here. We'll give this honorary degree to Simon Turner. He graduated here," and I was in the same hallway that I got my veterinary degree years before to get the honorary degree. It was one of the happiest days of my life, and there are only 2 people missing.
Who's that?
My mother and my father.
Well, they sure would be proud, I know that.
Being a dairy farmer, I think he would.
So you've built a lab that was special to many employees and staff members, as well as surgeons, residents, and especially students over the years.
Yes.
And there's not a soul that I've ever talked to that wasn't proud of the culture and the philosophy of how that lab grows and promotes people and things like that. So how did you do that?
Here's the thing. Just like Shackleton had able-bodied seamen in here to do the grunt work. I needed someone to do grunt work. I never asked a student to do something that I wouldn't do. Shackleton never asked his seamen to do something that he wouldn't do himself, whether it be pull in a rope or whatever. I would never ask a student to throw a sheep on a wheelbarrow if I couldn't do it myself. And there are some people, some in this building, who wouldn't have that philosophy. And I learned a lot of how to run it from that book.
So what did you learn from that book?
It's the best book on leadership I've ever had. And how he kept 27 people alive, living in Antarctica, living under boats, eating seagulls, eating penguins. And there was no apples or lettuce to add. No. And he kept them alive because of his personality and his leadership. And the ladies that wrote this, they read the book Endurance about Shackleton's ordeal. It's a heavy, thick-covered book. They've read that. And then they said, what was it about him that kept these people together without driving each other crazy? And that's when this book came out. And I said, aha. And I've read this, I was telling Joe, I've read this book, I've tabbed quite a lot in this, and I will go through the book periodically and say, I look at my underlining, aha. I could improve on that. Next page. I'm doing that okay. I got to get better at this. Yeah. And that's nothing. And living under sea, in the snow and ice in Antarctica has nothing to do with orthopedic research. And I've told you before, they give these books to these big-ass companies. The people in there said, look, before you come to the meeting on leadership, we want you to read this book. It may be IBM or someone like that, and said, deal with computers, not Antarctica. What the heck has this got to do with computers? It's leadership 101, right there. And that's how, there's a lot of things in here, and the food is one thing.
Yeah, so what's that about? Tell us about that. Because food is important to the lab, right? We love to eat, and we love to eat together.
The quickest bridge between two people is humor and food. Yeah. And this book, the quickest, and Shackleton said, in this, it says in this book, guys, don't lose your sense of humor. And as I said, they would sit down every day, and there'd be just grunt seamen, you know, there'd be lawyers, engineers, a complete cross-section of society. They'd get together and look at each other face to face. We're in this together. And that's why I have been very quick to have people together for dinner at those lunch people things we have. And that's where you'll get people coming to you to air some stuff that they'd never do. It's a little more personal, and it's a quick bridge to people.
It was certainly a bridge to a lot of the clients in the lab over the years too, with you having your dinner parties at home and things like that.
Well, I want the clients, I want the students that work for you to be absolutely love working here. Now, there's a lot of people that don't love to work in this building. Not mentioning names, but there's some people here that don't like working here. I want people to want to work with you. And that is what he did. He had the most unbelievable loyalty with 27 people. And they all survived. Even the cat lived. You didn't know that?
I didn't actually know that. So tell me about the dinner parties that you used to have for the clients.
Well, what we would do is the clients would often take us to nice restaurants here in town, but I am passionate about cooking. And and the clients that you would have to my house, and we're pretty much into dinner parties. It was a very personal touch to the clients.
I still have clients to this day that that will say, "Is Simon around? Can I come over for dinner?"
Well, I want the clientele, I want them to enjoy coming back, not because we do good research, which you do, but because they have a good time, because they've got terrible, boring jobs, eating out at restaurants and paying a lot of money every time.
And I always do. I agree with you. I think I've always found that the clients that enjoy the company of our team are the ones that stay around the longest, and we really become close and friends with, because they actually, it's not hopefully we do good research for them, but hopefully they enjoy
Well,
us as
precisely.
people as well.
Precisely, because some of their jobs are a little bit tedious, dealing with FDA and all the government stuff. That could get a bit old.
Hopefully they can come here and have some fun.
Precisely. You know what I'm talking about.
In your career, knowing that this lab has been going now for 30 years and you have a great following of students that have come and gone, do you have anything that you remember most about some of those students, or any stories that were touching or impactful that you're really proud of?
A student called Nathan Priddy. He was a sophomore, and this was in the days we were spaying 9 sheep a day. And he was scrubbed in, and he hadn't even been through his surgery rotation. He hadn't even been in surgery.
So he was in vet school, though?
He was in vet school. He was a sophomore. And I was incising, and he was handing me instruments. And then I said, okay, Nathan, I want you to make the incisions. Well, we never had it. I watched him make the incision. He held it, steadied the skin. And I said to myself, he's got the DNA of a surgeon. Now, without making a huge bloody announcement to everyone, I pulled him aside. And I said, Nathan, I saw you make that incision. When you get out of vet school, you should do a surgery residency. Well, fast forward, vet school, surgery residency, board certification. And I sent him that cartoon of Rusty, the Gary Larson cartoon.
The one where
Rusty's
they're jumping across the road, trying to not get hit by the cars that are labeled different, different. What do you call it? Just different goals or achievements along the way.
And anyway, okay, Rusty's in the club. He got through across the road. Well, I sent him that, and I've made it. Okay, Nathan's in the club. I've got the board. Well, anyway, I sent that letter to him. And and it's in one of these, a handwritten letter from him saying that conversation we had, one-on-one, no one else was with us. That got me so fired up to be where I am. And then in the bottom of the letter, it said, you made me what I am. Fast. Well, here he is. He's in Fairbanks or somewhere now. Fast forward, 3 years ago, I called him on the phone and said, do you remember working with me in the lab? I said, I sure do. That conversation we had, you made. He's got to practice with 30 people or something. You made me what I am. Now, my career is finished, but it is extreme, and bringing in research, those days are over. But getting a comment like that, to me, that's what gets me high. Getting other careers to go where they go. And there's hundreds of students that I have touched like that. Many of them I've all never seen again. But occasionally, if I see someone, and you should be aware of this, do it yourself. If you see some student that's been through the lab, and all of a sudden he's president of some VMA or something like that, because email, Jeremiah, is how the world speaks. Send him an email and say, hey, I saw that you were made president or whatever. secretary or whatever. Congratulations. I mean, that is 30
You've always been great about that as far as congratulating.
That's called reaching out and touching someone. And now with email and internet, there's no excuse that you can't spend 20 seconds of your day and reach out and touch someone like that. Yeah. That is huge. And Nathan I got this lovely letter saying, "You made me what I am." Well, our careers, like I said, my careers have closed, but I still get a rush, and I'm quickly through. I don't just look at obituaries. I might say, remember him? He worked in the lab. And I will send them an email because you can get their email. I'll call up their practice and, send me so-and-so's email. I'm going to send them a congratulation. Bingo. It is effortless now with internet and email to pat someone on the back. You don't have to send them flowers or a handwritten letter. Just get on email. And that goes a long way.
I'm sure it does.
This is a quote, and I used this in a graduation speech. I had to go.
Well, I love this. So, yeah, why don't you read that?
Our students are some of the most important people on campus. Without them, there would be no need for this institution. They're not just an interruption of our work, but to a great extent, the purpose of it. They are flesh and blood, human beings, with feelings and emotions like our own, not just cold enrollment statistics. In reality, less dependent on us as we are on them. We are not doing them as much a favour working with them as they are giving us the opportunity to do so. They are not just tolerated while we do our thing, they are our thing.
That's what I remember most about that. I thought that was great.
Well,
yeah, I loved that when you read that to me when we had dinner one night.
I've got, the people that passed the boards, and I'm very quick to congratulate them on that. Now, I've tabbed a few things here. That's ORS.
Oh yeah. Is that your Nature article?
Yeah. No. Here's my Nature article. Right there. Now, this is using sheep. We were standing their hind legs on this plate that oscillated.
Sheep shaker, right?
The sheep shaker thing.
Yeah.
Well, that got us a paper in Nature in 2001. Wow. In 1953, Watson and Crick had a paper in Nature about DNA, the double helix. And the double helix, the best description I've seen, it's like taking a ladder and spiraling around a tree. That's what it looks like. Well, 48 years later, I was in the same journal as Watson and Crick.
I bet that was pretty neat.
I was in good company.
I bet.
Everyone knows about DNA shit. You can read about it in the newspapers.
Yeah. So that the paper, the one that you were in Nature for, that was the what was that study on? Remind me.
We stand the hind legs.
Okay.
And you know when a car is idling at a stoplight, touch the car, you can feel the slightest vibration. Well, we were subjecting the hind legs of these sheep to this very high intensity, low force vibration. And we were increasing their bone density.
Oh, wow.
And that has a huge implication for women with osteoporosis. And they could stand on this at home when they did their teeth in the morning and have 30 seconds and increase the bone density in their proximal femur. And that got on the market.
That's the paper that made it there, huh?
And that's the paper that got it there,
here we
right
go.
there.
Yeah.
Right there.
And who was that with?
With Clint Rubin.
Clint Rubin?
Clint Rubin from New York, and a bunch of other guys. And there's the bone density there. That gets back to an important quotation we have here on campus.
I know which,
What's that? Okay. There's a lot of stuff I have done. I could never have done it on my own. And just like Sir Isaac Newton said, I was able to see farther than others because I stood on the shoulders of giants, and these were two giants. I stood on the shoulder. That's how I got a paper in Nature. And when I got these awards, in Australia and that with the honorary degree, they said, oh, and by the way, he had a 2001 paper in Nature. I didn't know it was that big a deal. But then I look back, Watson and Crick, I think I was in good company.
So who were some giants other than Clint Rubin?
Oh, well, there was a few giants in Australia while I was going through vet school.
Yeah.
Some who pulled me aside and said, you should do a surgery residency. But there was a few back here in the States, like O.R. Adams, Garp. There was a few here in the States. I could go on. I'm just blanking on who else there would be. But there were some others that I could.
So while you're on the topic of O.R. Adams, I want you to tell me the story about O.R. Adams and the biker and the.
He was doing a lameness exam in where the old hospital was.
Yeah.
And that's when there were students everywhere. It was crazy having the vet there, and he was trotting a horse. And Adams, he was trotting a horse that was lame, and he had his health testers. And he said, stop that bicycle. I'm looking at a horse. If you ride that bike past me, I'll be annoyed. And the guy just motored past this horse. I don't know what the horse did. He threw that big-ass piece of hoof testers into the spokes, into his bike, and brought him down. And these were...
You don't see that.
You don't see that anymore. Another thing you could say, he was terribly conservative. You ever heard this one?
I don't think so.
And he didn't allow anyone with a beard or mustache in the OR because he thought that would cause infection. And students that were coming on his rotation, they would shave. And, and then I said to him one day, this was when earrings were just starting, I said, Dr. Adams, there's a student coming on your rotation that has an earring, which nowadays is nothing. Yeah. He said, if he comes onto my rotation with that earring, I'll pull it down and hook it on his big toe. O.R. Adams was very, very conservative, and he wore a tie, everything. He'd be out there, not in surgery, obviously, but he'd be out there jogging, and he'd have a tie on. And that's another thing that I think I've talked about. I'm very conservative. And with your dress. With my dress, because I think as veterinarians, if you're going to stick them with a big bill, you better look like a professional. Yeah. Now, we have a lot of women now in vet school. They wouldn't want their OB-GYN or their doctor to come in flip-flops and shorts and a T-shirt to examine them if they walked into their office. So I dress like a damn professional, because if you're going to stick them with a big-ass bill, you're more likely to get away with it if you look like a doctor. And and another thing I might have told you is I want someone to come into a big cocktail party and look all around the crew and said, there's the veterinarian, just how you are dressed. Now, you don't have to be in a dinner suit, but just look like a damn professional. Because if you're going to stick them with a big bill, because that's how you make your living, look like a professional.
Well, you always do that. There's no doubt about that, especially with that bow tie on. So let's look at that bow tie. I don't know that it's all professional, is it?
There's a little bit of risque at the back. Okay, what other things? Oh, here's a good one. This goes back to Australia. I was at my niece's graduation, at the formal graduation. And this guy, Kevin Choi, was a classmate. And all of a sudden, they're giving the awards, surgery award, da-da-da award, the best medicine award, da-da-da. And I said, this dude, Kevin Choi, I said to Fiona, my niece, he got a lot of awards. I need to talk to him. Well, after graduation, everyone's shaking hands. I came up to him and said, you need to come to the States and do a residency. Okay, here's what I got from him. He did a residency in medical oncology at WSU in Washington State. Yeah. He said, without your help and guidance and meeting you at that fateful graduation ceremony in Oz, Australia, I would not be here. So just that one conversation, just like I had to Nathan Pretty, that one conversation was huge.
That's really neat. I didn't know, I've not heard this one. That's really great.
And
more people that you've touched.
Yeah, more people that I've touched. And look, I'm telling you, he's gone a long way. But I pulled him aside and said, give this a thought. You need to come to the States. Yeah. Okay, what else? Oh, here's a quote for you. This is something. This is words from Stephen Jobs. Okay. Getting fired from equine surgery was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again. Less sure about everything. It freed me up to enter one of the most productive times of my life. That's Job's words.
Totally true, yeah. I can't argue with that. And thankfully you did, because you went on to develop some amazing things.
But see, a lot of people, I'm a big album, I'm an album nut. I'm a real nostalgia freak. And people said, oh, I've got that online on my laptop. I want to sit there with a beer or a wine or a cup of coffee with it on my lap, like I'm doing this minute, and flip through that. That's what gives me the buzz, to have the thing on my lap, like a newspaper. And those days are getting less and less because of internet. But I want the hard copy with someone's signature. It might be a handwritten letter, might be this, or an email, to just flip through it like this.
You've had a lot of impact on him, I know that. Hector?
Well, yep.
Yeah.
Well, see, that was a fabulous story. His father, the 3 kids, they came to the States. He went to vet school, the other went to medical school. Oh, wow. They went on, and one became a lawyer.
Very successful.
Welcome to the USA.
Yeah. Oh, Hector was a great student in the lab.
But that's the sort of thing, you'll get to this stage eventually with me, like me. You'll career is will fade into the background, but what gives you the buzz now is other people's careers, not your own. And shit, you've got children. They're going to become a major thing. Well, without children, my children went to vet school, and I went. We never have children, but it's like I had students. The students were my children, which sounds a little bit corny, but I didn't have to pay for their education, and they went home at 5 o'clock, but they still gave me a buzz like you've just seen here with their achievements. Now, some of them I'll never see again in my life, but if I see someone who I think who worked for the lab who I knew get on email, that's how the world speaks, and say, hey, I saw you were made president of, or whatever. Congratulations. 30 seconds of your time and a big rush from them.
Huh. So I got one topic I wanted to kind of ask you about along the lines of your career. What do you, how many times did you go to ORS in your career, do you think? And how did that impact the lab, do you feel?
Well, I pretty soon, the veterinary meetings started to fade into the background because I was doing human-related stuff. So I thought, I better be seen, I better rub shoulders with some dudes. And often these orthopedic companies would say, oh, are you going to ORS? Or I'd have a poster there, and I'd stand in front of the poster with the bow tie on, and they would come up to me and said, look, I know you do sheep research. We'd like to bring our product, whether it be screw or whatever, or implant or plate or whatever, we'd like to try our implant in your lab. And then I used to say to people like you, don't go there without your business card. Out comes business card. There's your email. That is a little bit easier to bring money for the lab than writing a NIH grant. To stand there and wine and dine with them and talk face to face about studies. And you don't have to make this a big announcement, but just sit down and have a cup of coffee with the people and said, and that's how I attracted a lot of people. It's just the personal side of it. And then I'd be forced to have them for dinner at my house.
So it was definitely that was the main meeting that you did all of your networking
Oh, there's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. I mean, occasionally I went to some veterinary meetings, but that started to fade into the background because I thought, I better rub shoulders with some big names here. And just seeing that, looking professional, they'd realize, hey, that's where I'm going to bring chin chin.
Yeah, it's important. I mean, certainly, I'm really glad that you've been able to come the last couple of years too, and enjoy not even the networking, but just being a part of our team.
Well, I'm fading out of that, Jeremiah. May not be back to many, but but I'm so happy that someone like yourself has been able to say, that's what I'm going to do. And me just explain to you, this is how the lab works. And you've seen exactly the ORS. You've got a business card. They've read your articles. That brings the money in. Because these human surgeons, they want to get with us. They're not going to go calling. They don't know anyone, but once they've got them, it just snowballed. And one lab had said, oh, so-and-so did a study using this drug. I want to try something different in your lab because there is a lot of money to be made in human-related stuff. This is not for sheep with broken legs. This is for osteoporosis in women, and all that. And I'll remember that. This is always gets a little bit of a buzz when I tell other human doctors. I have a paper where I documented hot flashes in sheep. People said, hot flashes in sheep? You can read the paper. I mean, I'm the third author, but I was the first to document it. Hot flashes in sheep, not just elderly women, not just your mother or my mother.
One thing I brought with me that I thought you could tell a story on. So you remember this?
Hey, where have we got this? I hope not.
So we were able to get it out of the wall because it was on the wall in the old lab. Remember?
Yes, right. Yeah, right.
So what's the story on that? Because I don't know if I've ever heard the full story of when he visited.
Well, that is the Steve Irwin.
Yeah, this is Steve Irwin that came to the lab, met Simon, and then signed the wall in the old lab, right?
Right.
Over in the veterinary teaching hospital. So we were able to get this brick out of the wall still.
And now, remember who Steve Irwin is? What movie he was in?
Well, he's Crocodile Hunter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Crocodile Hunter. And wrestling crocodiles. And I knew he was Australian. And once he heard me speak Australianese, we kind of bonded.
Yeah.
But he came here with a dog or something.
Okay.
He didn't come here to see me.
Right.
He came because he had his veterinarian had referred him to come here because the dog had bone cancer or something like that. Yeah. And then I got to meet him and shake his hand. He's Steve Irwin. And we didn't go out to dinner or have dinner at my house or anything, but I got a felt pen, Sharpie or whatever, and he wrote that on the wall.
So let's talk about health. That's important to you. You've done how many marathons in your life?
Okay, what's on the front cover of that?
Looks like they're playing football almost.
They're playing soccer.
Soccer, okay.
In Antarctica.
Yeah.
This is Shackleton. He realized, and you do too, how important exercise was. He kept 27 people alive and not killing each other in Antarctica, where I have been. And actually, I have cross-country skied in conditions like that in Antarctica.
You cross-country skied in it?
Yeah, yes, we did. And there's somewhere in here it says how important exercise is. Well, without getting too philosophical, I've done 9 marathons, 3 Bostons, 3 in San Francisco, New York, 1 here in Fort Collins, the 9th in Scottsdale, Arizona, 9 of them. But I can't do that SHIT anymore. But I want to keep my cholesterol down, my weight constant, and my blood pressure. They're all in good shape. But I've done 9 marathons, and honestly, I can lap swim, and I still cross-country ski, non-concussive, big cardio workouts without pounding the articular cartilage. So I still do that. But I don't want to do that anymore, but I'm looking after my health. The marathons used to be so, Jeremiah, when you're jogging, your blood circulation in your head is increased, and you'll start to get thoughts, and that comes out in this. A lot of thoughts will come to your mind that never would have come just sitting down like this. And that it comes out in the Shackleton book. And I would be on a jog when we used to live out in County Road 48. I would be jogging around there getting ready for a marathon. And all of a sudden I said, I better call this client. or I better deal with this student like this, or I better call this veterinarian this. Stuff will come into your mind that it never would be sit in front of television or just sitting and meal, because the blood supply to your head has gone up.
Yeah. I have that happen to me, and then I forget by the time I'm back there what I was thinking of.
Well, sometimes, actually, I've been known to take a tiny scrap of paper.
And write it down when you were on your run?
Write it down when I'm on my run. Because, I mean, I'm not the first to tell this. This is a huge part, and some of the geniuses in the world, I mean, the Einsteins and some of these, they got their best thoughts when they were getting exercise. It's not just me sprouting this off. This is well known. It's a physiological phenomenon, well known for mankind for a long time.
Uh-huh. So what's, obviously you did lots of marathons. You were a big bicyclist at one point. What's your, what hobbies?
Oh, well, I make radio control models.
Yeah.
And of course, that's very meticulous, intricate, takes a lot of thinking. And I can spend a lot of time up in my hobby shop away from my wife, away from television, not eating food, listening to easy music. When I'm up there in my hobby shop, I'm listening to easy music. Jeremiah, I'm on another planet. And I don't just sit there watching the rubbish on television. I'm doing something good for my hands, like surgery, and good for my head. So there's a lot of mental. You get these instructions how to build this model airplane, and these come in boxes of just of parts and wood, and plastic and wire. You got to put it together, and then you got to fly it. It's got to fly.
Is that one of your happy places then?
Yes.
Where you go and can relax?
Yeah, I can relax, and I've got some people that like to fly with me and everything, and these are pretty cool. And I think if I hadn't, this is probably something I don't think I've ever told you. When I was in university, I was in the University Air Squadron, like ROTC.
I did not know that.
You know what ROTC, like ROTC.
Oh, okay, ROTC.
ROTC, yeah.
Okay.
And because in the late 60s, Australia was pretty big in Vietnam. Not as big as this country. And it wasn't our biggest mistake, but we were in Vietnam. And we had national service where your name could come up and you could end up in Vietnam instead of going to university. And I joined the University Air Squadron. And every month we had to meet, and I had a uniform, the whole lot. And then if I hadn't have gotten to vet school, I would have joined the Air Force. And then got through all that, and then joined the commercial aviation.
So you've always been interested in
I've
that?
always been interested in flying, and my father was a pilot in World War II. Okay. He flew a P-47 Thunderbolt. He flew a Spitfire once, and he flew a Hawker Hurricane, bombing the Japanese in Burma, which is now Myanmar, bombing. And he would bomb their bridges and where the Japanese was, because Japan was as close to Australia as Mexico is from you here. They were pretty, and don't forget, remember what they did Pearl Harbor. And so he was big into the Royal Australian Air Force. So I was nearly going to become a pilot, but I got into vet school and the rest is history. And so that was my sort of fallback career, was going to become an Air Force pilot, and fly.
I did not know that. Yeah, that's interesting.
And I had the uniform and the whole damn lot, just like and I'm very, very respectful for the U.S. military, whether it be Air Force, Marines or whatever, and I'm very quick if I see them. It may be at DIA. I'm very quick to salute them. I don't rush up to them and pat them on the back. I just do this. It's my way of saying, job well done.
Yeah.
Because this country is fabulous. And I think I've told you I've been to Arlington 3 times.
On that topic, I remember you telling me when you were in, I think it was Craig Hospital, recovering probably from your second bike accident.
Yeah, right.
And,
It was Craig.
And just, I remember some of the stories you told about, during recovery and some of the other patients that you met.
Oh,
there.
yes. There were a few patients there, and they'd been in a roadside bomb blast in Iraq or somewhere. I remember one pulling up his pants and showing me a titanium leg from the knee down. And I said, Simon, these are yours. They're not his. He got those from the hardware store. So it was a big wake-up call to say, hey, you're not doing too bad.
Yeah.
To see this.
Put things into perspective.
Oh, totally. And I would be a big sympathetic on that.
Yeah.
When they showed me their leg. Titanium from the knee down.
Lots of fighters there.
Oh, yes.
Recovering.
Yep.
Yeah. Anything you remember from that time as far as...
Well, interestingly, I can remember hardly anything. I do remember Anne coming down and taking me out to lunch a few times. But it was terribly boring and lonely in hospital. But some people had been in there for months, recovering from shit. I was in there. I wasn't in there for that long, but it put things in perspective when you see what it could have been. It's a bit of a wake-up call. Yeah. I dodged a bullet. I had a good look over the edge.
I always think there's no one in my part, for me personally, there's no one that is more passionate than you in regards to how you tackle everyday things, and I.
In what respect? What do you mean? But expand on
you
that.
You don't do anything half-ass.
The sky's the limit.
Yep. And do you feel that some of that have you always been that way?
I've always been. That's why I came to the States.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of my classmates never left Australia. But, at 23 years old, I packed my bags and flew to Columbus, Ohio. So I had a little bit of let me expand on that. People with interesting careers have taken risks. People that have done interesting stuff have taken risks. Yeah. And people who've got good careers have had 2 or 3 careers. The Wright brothers, what was their first thing they did? They repaired bicycles. Okay. They're from Dayton, Ohio, where I was married. Then they got into kites. Then they got into airplanes. And then in 12 seconds at Kitty Hawk, which I'm going to visit sometime, Wilbur Wright went up in a plane for 12 seconds, the first man ever to fly. The rest is history. Yeah. Imagine if you could tell the Wrights about a plane that can go from Los Angeles to Melbourne non-stop. He'd say, what planet are you from? It wasn't without, okay, they changed careers, but they had risks.
Yeah.
He was up there. It could have crashed and killed his ass.
So your passion and your intensity for things has been there forever.
Forever.
It wasn't from looking over the edge.
No. It's been in my personality all along.
Yeah.
I've always been a bit of a risk taker. I've always been a bit crazy. Taking risks.
In what way? What do you
Well, I take risks, you know. I'd take risks as kids. I grew up on a dairy farm, and you know that was I was a tree climbing nut. My parents would go for a dinner party. I'd be out in the backyard of the peoples that invite us, looking at a tree to climb. I was a tree climbing nut. I mean, I'm a serious tree climber. You know, Anne can't climb trees. She's scared of heights. But I would love to climb. I'd go and say, yeah, I think I can get up that side and go to that branch. I was a tree climber when I was 10 years old. It's always been in my DNA.
Yeah. I was speaking to Jen last night, and I said, Jen, I'm interviewing Simon tomorrow, and what stories has Simon told you that I ought to ask him about? And she brought up the possum story.
On my head?
Yeah.
Well, we had, growing up on the dairy farm, there were these are not the little possums, these are called brush-tailed possums, which is this big. They weigh 20, 30 pounds. Big. But they're damn near, they're big. They're marsupials.
Yeah.
And I was coming home near our milking shed. There was a mother possum who'd climbed a lamppost and fallen down, and the mother looked like she was dead. And I gave it a kick and said, "This damn thing's dead." But I looked in the pouch, and there it had a baby in its pouch, and it was not bigger than my hand. We took that possum home, fed it with milk with an eyedropper. It grew up to be a pet, like a dog. And I've got a picture this very day of that possum sitting on my head. We used to put it on the back of a dog and walk the dog, and the possum was hanging on the back. But it was totally friendly.
Yeah.
It was a brush-tailed possum.
Interesting. That's pretty funny. Yeah, she remembers that story you told her. I think you told her that when you and her were out cross-country skiing up at Steamboat when we visited your cabin.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I told about the possum. Yeah, I mean, we raised the damn possum. And Australia's got some interesting animals with the marsupials. And Australia, geologically, it's an extremely old country. And there's some minerals. I'm not into geology, but there's some minerals. I mean, we're talking titanium and big-time stuff like that. That's in nowhere else in the world because it's an old country. And it's older than this country because it's geologically it's extremely old. And that's why gold and these big companies and coal and is big because it's an old country. It's, you know, I mean, we're talking millions of years old.
So you mentioned Anne, and she's afraid of heights. You said
she's a bit afraid of heights. What people don't realise, she got her pilot's license.
Really? I had no idea that.
She's from Dayton, Ohio.
So she had a pilot license, huh? That's really interesting.
It's now expired.
Yeah.
And here's a story. She had to fly to get her logbook signed. She had to fly from Dayton, Ohio to Muncie, Indiana, which is the next door state. Single, on her own. On her own.
Now, when did she do this?
Vet school, when she's in vet school.
Okay.
Or before vet school.
Yeah.
And she learned to fly in a Cessna, which is a high wing.
Okay.
Which is a Cessna 180, which is a fairly standard plane to use to start. Then, when she got to Muncie, Indiana, they were mainly Piper, which are low wing. Okay, and the guy walks out, or she pulled up, a guy walks out to sign it. He keeps staring and said, "There's a woman in this." And he forgot It was a high-wing plane and hit his head on the wing. Oh, shit, it's a Cessna, not a Piper.
Yeah.
And he hit his head on the wing, but he signed it and she. But
I had no idea about that with Ann.
she got a pilot's license.
So how long have you and Ann been married?
44 years.
Wow.
My first and only wife. And what kind of disturbs me now, a lot of people are seeing people such as our president and film stars and people with millions of dollars go 3 and 4 marriages. Marriages still work, and your parents are a good example. My parents were married till the day they died. Marriages still work. 44 years.
What's the secret? So that whole book is your one-liners?
No, there's a lot of students.
You've got enough of them.
No, there's a little student. This was a 50th birthday, and they summed them up.
Don't let the linea alba stand between you and a diagnosis.
You're a colic surgeon, you know that.
So I once shed a segment this long.
Now, what's shedding segments got to do?
Oh, I know what. Why don't you tell us? We talked about food earlier, so.
Well, when we'd have these MDs to do research in the lab, we'd order lunch.
Yeah.
And I'd be hungry. I might have swum that morning. And been in surgery all day. Shit, I'm getting hungry. We better order, it might be Young's or Mackie D's or whatever. I'm so hungry. I could shed a segment. And people think, what do you mean shed a segment? And I would tell them I had a tapeworm. And when there was no food going down there, it started to break apart and the segments of the tapeworm would come out of my rectum. That's shedding segments because you're so hungry. You're not putting enough food in your mouth.
Stay inside of you. They're leaving you.
They're leaving me, segment by segment. And a lot of physicians have no idea what a tapeworm is.
Looking at you like you were crazy.
They had no idea what a tapeworm was.
Yeah.
But being veterinarians, we know what the hell tapeworms are. That's a serious veterinary issue.
Yeah.
And I'd say, hey, I'm shedding segments.
That's one of my favorites. What else you got in there?
Oh,
A chance to cut is a chance to cure, yeah.
okay. Flat out like a lizard drinking. They don't drink that too fast. You don't see lizards going.
So you did. This is one. So what would you nickname the lab?
Oh, the Sheep Hilton Spa and Tennis Club. Or the Sheep Health Institute of Technology.
That's right,
Don't abbreviate that. Joe, don't abbreviate that. This was my 50th birthday.
Yeah.
That's when I was
That's when you dressed up
as Elton John.
That's perfect.
And I have seen Elton John live.
Yeah.
Okay, go through a couple of one-line. Got all the one-liners tabbed here. Oh,
You'd get.
tiny little bit of students.
Uh-huh.
I could spay 20 dogs with that. As students get a bit wasteful, you're wasting your suture. I could spay 20 dogs with that. Spay 20 dogs with that. Oh, here's one.
Sometimes you got to put the tack hammer down and get out the sledgehammer.
That's getting serious.
Yeah.
And that could be in anything. If someone's pissed you off at a bar, you've got to get nasty. You've got to put the tack hammer down and get nasty. Get the sledgehammer out. Oh, handing instruments.
Yeah.
This is... get us a pen or something.
Here, I got something because you're going to use this here in a minute. Anyway, you may not remember. You may guess what this is for in a minute, but you can use that.
Okay, I still get students who graduated say, you taught me how to hand instruments. And I'd say, hand me this scalpel. And I would go like this. And I said, I went out with a girl that kissed like that. Like you mean it, dude. And I get letters from students and I never forget what you said about handing instruments.
Yeah.
Okay. I got these are one-liners. And you know, as I told you, the two quick bridges between two people. Humor. And that's what Shackles said. He said to his dudes, don't lose your sense of humor. It's in this book.
Well, you never have lost that. I know that for sure.
Oh, here's one. This is special to me.
Okay.
I've got a handwritten letter from Bill Morgan
Oh, okay.
of Morgan Library fame.
On campus here.
Yeah. He was president of the university.
And did you know him personally?
I cooked a dinner for him in his house.
Okay.
And he wrote me this. This is a handwritten letter.
That's neat.
And look, Morgan Street, Morgan Library. There he is. A handwritten letter.
So he was in your house for dinner?
No, I went to his house. He didn't come to our house.
Okay.
I went to his house with a meal and I cooked the meal.
Oh, you cooked the meal at his house?
At his house.
Okay. What other people have you had? I know you've had a couple of famous people for dinner.
We've had 4 Olympians in our house for dinner.
Yeah.
One we saw win the gold medal in Montreal in the 3-day event. Tad Coffin, the 3-day event, we saw him win his gold medal.
That's neat.
We've had Philip Anderson, a cyclist, who was in the Tour de France. We've had some other people who were in the horse part of the Olympics that Anne will remember. Okay. There's my paper in Nature, sheep shaker.
Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah, there is a sheep shaker.
See, that's why this wouldn't be the same having it online
Yeah.
with a laptop.
No, this is really neat how you have all of this.
Oh, that's my graduation speech in 1999. I gave the send-off. I was asked to give the send-off speech at graduation.
Yeah.
Well, I have seen hundreds and hundreds of students graduate, and I can't remember their names.
Yeah.
But a lot of people said that was a good speech. And what I did was, it was why my research was like cooking. Research and cooking? Well, I'll go through some of the key events. I'll give the rules. Okay, I'll say... Let me share with you a list of rules that good chefs live by that apply to veterinary medicine. So that's, it could go, they don't have to be large animal or anything, just vets, how cooking relies to vet medicine. Successful chefs understand the virtues of patience and perseverance. Okay, whatever you do.
So rule 2, right?
Rule 2 is foster teamwork. Good chefs don't work alone. Look at the top restaurants. They're not just one chef. They've got a ton of people in there.
Yeah.
Workers, it's like your veterinary practice. It's not you.
Right.
You're a team. Rule 3, keep on learning. Top chefs in the country are continually learning new techniques. They are avid readers of cooking magazines and so on. So, like VetMed, don't just keep learning. I'll learn from your failures. Oh, okay. I was at a restaurant, probably at ORS, and I was fortunate enough to have a tour of the kitchen. And I was asking the head chef there, what's his best teacher? One of the best teachers in cooking. What's the best teacher in the cooking game is? Failure.
Yeah.
Now, I've screwed up a fair good dinner parties, but I don't make my living selling food. And that's what they do. They said, well, we better take this off the menu.
Yeah. I've never had a bad meal at your house.
You need to talk to Anne. She's had some of my 3-ring
She's your
binders.
best critic?
I'll take it out and I'll put a big line through it and say, not again. But I'm not making my living doing that.
Right.
And you go to some of the restaurants here in town, that's how they do it.
Yeah.
If it's not selling, because that's money.
Right.
Okay, accept responsibility for those and mistakes. I'll develop a niche and a skill. Now, I don't know why I'm telling you this, because that's what you're already doing. You've got a niche now. And I go back to my vet school reunion, and they're still neutering pets like they learned years ago. You're in a different class here now. You're doing something your classmates will never hear about. And you're developing a niche because there's so many. Don't follow the masses. Do something that's unique to you. And your father's a perfect example.
Yeah.
He's got his own niche here. He's got a niche. Just do that.
Yeah.
And that's how this lab's developed. I developed a niche that no one else is doing.
Right.
The orthopedic, using sheep, started in Switzerland. Okay, where are we up to? Rule 7.
Yes, Rule 7, yeah.
Do something to help someone else. Keep life in balance. Balance the spices. Don't overdo spices. And exercise. So class of 99, happy
That's
cooking.
neat.
Anyway, that's it. What else? We're getting to the end here.
Yeah.
Oh, here's some one-liners. Oh, there's a sheep on the table, big deal. Get back, Loretta.
Oh, there's the one.
Oh.
Try like a steer.
Yeah, try like a steer. And these physicians would say, a steer? What do you mean try like a steer? They have no idea that castrated male cows try to mount each other. They're steers. Try like a steer? You know what that is. Here's another one. Slicker than hair on a frog. Joe knows that
I've heard
one.
that one.
Oh. He's got one foot in the grave and the other is on a banana skin. People would say, how's that sheep doing? Not good. It's got 2 legs in the grave and the other 2 are on banana skins. Okay, it's as easy as pulling the skin off a rice pudding. Okay.
That's neat.
So that's why I don't have it all. It wouldn't be fun. I want the weight on my legs. I want a beer or a wine or a coffee here to go through that.
Yeah.
That's what gives me a buzz. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure to do this. And might be cry. Tears of joy.
That's good. So long.
So long, Joe.